percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from three. He was 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely you're gonna get that number 1 seed, and so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 to 8.
Welcome in to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs Basketball Edition, presented by the Saxenian family. The Saxenian family is going to be the primary sponsor for all Let's Rage Coogs basketball episodes. We are coming off the heels of the third straight victory for the Houston Cougars, the number 6 ranked Houston Cougars, to open the season. They've played 3 games. They've won 3 games, and they came away with a 79-48 victory over Stetson, who comes from the state of Florida. When we talk about leading the scorers for Houston, it was LJ Cryer that led the way with 21 points. He is 9 of 15 from the field. Dayon Dunn had 15 points. He went 6 of 11 from the field. And Terrence Arsenault had 10 points on 3 of 5 shooting from the field. Those 3 players were the ones that got into double digits. And Malik Wilson as well, 11 points, 5 for 6 from the field. Malik Wilson had a great game here for Houston. Dayon, what you think of Houston's performance against Stetson?
I mean, it was really a typical Houston victory. Tough defense, rebounding, really dominated the glass. But really, when I watch them early in these first couple of games, really not much competition, not much resistance. So it was really like, in my opinion, like a scrimmage that counts towards your record. I mean, teams that they are dominating, in which they should dominate, and they have done so. And I'm really just kind of paying attention to some of the different lineups, some of the different sets, and I'm seeing the versatility of this team and the depth of this team. And I really like this team. But, I mean, early on, it really isn't much to kind of break down from a sense, but really, really watching certain things and see how much depth and how much this team, how many different ways this team can win. It will win as the season goes on.
The depth, most definitely something that has been highlighted so far through the 3 games for the Houston Cougars. The other thing as well that has been highlighted is the key additions in Cryer and Dayon Dunn. They obviously transfers, new additions, new faces to the program, but the veterans, and again, it seems like, especially when it comes to the case for Dayon Dunn, but both of the players, they've done a good job of making their impact felt. And kind of like you said, Dayon, in the first 3 games of the season, it might not necessarily be the toughest opponent when it comes to the level that the Houston Cougars have been able to establish, but still, it counts for the record. You play who's in front of you, and they've done a good job of handling business.
They've done it in impressive fashion, and that's what I like to see. Not playing down to the level of your competition, coming out and really doing what we expect them to do to the level of competition and what they've played. But to the veterans that you mentioned, LJ Cryer, his best game so far early in this season, and he's really an aggressive scorer. But I like the way he's fitting in. I don't feel like he's being over aggressive and taking any bad shots. He's always doing it within the confines of the offense. And I really love Dayon Dunn's game. Just watching it, I'm really thinking, I know Coach Sampson referenced that he has him for 2 years, but who knows if they go far this year? You never know. I think his draft stock with Houston will go up tremendously because he'll be able to put on display his full arsenal of game and what he can do. And I think he's in my opinion, their most versatile player. And I think as the season goes on, he might prove to be their best player, in my opinion. But I love what those 2 bring, and just the others. Jamal Shead, still steady in regards to he knows the offense and the system so well. He knows where everyone is. I really love his floor generalship as well so far early in the season.
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson to the ESPN Plus stream after the game called Jamal Shead the point guard, a point guard's point guard for the Houston Cougars, and he continues to lead the way. Had 8 assists for Houston in this win over Stetson. When you talk about Dayon Dunn, like you mentioned, Dayon, a lot of versatility when it comes to this game, and I agree 100%. It wouldn't be surprising come this time a month or 2 or 3 months from now that Dayon Dunn is kind of the go-to player for the Houston Cougars down the stretch, and really he has a the versatility that you mentioned, he has a little bit of an old school game when it comes to being able. He showed it today when he had a mismatch, took a player into the post, had a little turnaround jumper, and made it from mid range. Obviously, he showcased that he can bury a 3-pointers, especially when he's open, and he can drive as well. He's a triple threat player when it comes to being able to drive, being able to have the mid range, and of course being able to knock down threes. And exciting that 3 games in, he seems to fit right in. It's like he's been playing for Houston his entire career.
And another part of his game that you didn't mention that he does really well, that he showed at Temple, was his ability to run the offense. I think that's
Hmm.
another asset of his game that we'll see as the season goes on, whether it be foul trouble, whatever the case may be. He will be able to show that not only can he do all the things that you mentioned, but he has the ability to run an offense and still be able to score at an efficient rate. And so I really love his game. I think he's such a well-rounded player. He can play on ball. He can play off ball, and he's really their sixth starter, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not mad with. Well, of course, I'm not mad. Um, I can understand why Emmanuel Sharp is a starter, and he's definitely deserves to be a starter. But with his game right now, he's not always going to be on. No jump shooter is always going to be on. But like I talked about in our first episode after the first game, he's done an outstanding job of continuing to develop his game in regards to attacking closeouts, because everyone on the scouting report is going to look to run him off the line, and he's showing that he's developing and being able to do that as well. But I really like these guards. The guard depth is good. I really think Wilson, like I said on a previous episode, he will be the one of the X factor players for Houston. He will help them win a lot of games this season, and I really like his game. He's another versatile player who can not only play on ball, but he can play off the ball as well. He can get them in and out of the sets, and he's just tenacious defensively. His length, his activity, his way that he can score and create. Houston just this is one of the better teams. I see why Coach Sampson says he really likes this team and he has high hopes for this team.
Most definitely one area, kind of a note of concern for Houston. Jawan Roberts, obviously the starting four for the Cougars, only played 8 minutes in this game. And again, going back to the ESPN Plus broadcast, they said that it was a knee issue, a knee problem that was bothering him. Houston didn't want to force him, obviously, this early in the season in a game that, quite frankly, they didn't necessarily need Jawan Roberts as they showed. But that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Hopefully, it's not something that keeps them sidelined for the foreseeable future, and it's something that's minuscule, but we'll see. I'm sure more will come out of Jawan Roberts' health status, if not by the end of tonight, certainly in the coming days. Now, when we talk about this game overall, Dan, you kind of said that this was kind of like a traditional Houston Cougars men's basketball game, in the sense that really it was the defense that carried Houston, especially early on, because Houston was struggling. Shots weren't falling early on, and the game was tied at 6 minutes into the game. And even then, at the 12-minute media timeout, Houston trailed, or they only led by 3, I should say instead, but they had forced 7 turnovers. And after that media timeout, they started hitting their shots. Dayon Dunn hit 3 3-pointers, and slowly but surely, Houston created separation, and they never looked back. But it was a defense that really, like you said, we've been accustomed to for the past multiple years. That was the backbone, and then eventually the shots started falling for Houston, and Stetson couldn't keep up.
Yeah, they was able to turn defense into offense, and their defense jump started their offense in their way of getting transition, unscripted points, not having to run half court sets every time down the court. That's something Coach Sampson mentioned. That's something I think this team will be able to do at a high rate, because it'll be off at times, but they have 4 guards on the court, and they have the athleticism and the guards and the ability to push the pace and to be able to get those transition buckets, in which you have players like Dayon Dunn. And then you look at Terrence Arsenault. He played a lot of minutes today, had his best game so far this season in regards to point total, but I think overall he probably had his best game as well. And I think he's one of those players who will be called upon in those 4 guard sets, in which, if you guys haven't seen our interview with Coach Kellen Sampson, he referenced how Terrence is versatile and will play well in those 4 guard sets. And I think he did that tonight. And he's something to keep an eye on, because not only does he have the length and athleticism to guard some forwards, but he has the speed, the agility, and the quickness to be able to use that to his advantage in transition and to be able to cut and do different things to be able to score in transition.
For those that might just be joining us, or if you're listening to our audio-only platforms, I'd like to remind everybody that this is Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston post-game show for football and men's basketball. Of course, we'd like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor for today's episode of LRC, Star Pizza, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. All locations have an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet every Tuesday at lunch. So be sure to stop by, not just on game days, but on any day, whenever you're in the mood. On Tuesday specifically, whenever you're in the mood for some pizza buffet. And when it comes to the Houston Cougars men's basketball team, this was an interesting kind of break. Obviously, they played Saturday against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Turnaround 48 hours later, play against Stetson. A little bit of a taste of a potential, still way early, but similar to what you would see in the NCAA tournament. Now they're going to get a chance of what it's like in a conference tournament later on in the week when they play Towson on Thursday. They're going to play either Wake Forest or I'm not sure who the potential other opponent is. Let me try to pull up their schedule in a bit, and then they will play on Saturday. Go ahead, Dan.
Utah.
So either Wake Forest or Utah, and then they're going to play a third opponent on Saturday. So a three game stretch in the coming week, which again is going to get a feel for what a conference tournament will feel like. And obviously this season will be the Big 12 conference tournament. It's just going to be a juggernaut. Correction that they're going to play Thursday and Friday, and then they'll be off Saturday. They'll play on Sunday in the final meeting of the Charleston Classic. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes up. And a great test for Houston. There's some good teams in that tournament that they could see in later on this week. But when it comes to Houston and Stetson, another player that we haven't. Go ahead, Dan.
Before you move on, and I want to make a point to what you just referenced and how not only the turnaround between Saturday's game and this game, and then you reference the tournament. Coach Sampson always has the end game in mind in regards to March, and everything's the preparation to prepare them for those moments. And so that's credit to Coach Sampson and staff to have that in mind, and like you just mentioned, and be able to prepare them from what they're going to endure down the line from conference tournament and even an NCAA tournament.
Most definitely. And when it comes to this game in particular, you mentioned Emmanuel Sharp earlier when it came to his starting spot this year. Another player that's got inserted into the starting rotation this season is Javier Francis, who once again has continued to he's done what the Houston Cougars want him to do, and that's in terms of rebounding. He had a couple of nice putbacks. He had a good hustle play earlier. I can't remember, it was towards the end of the first half or maybe early in the second, but he helped on defense, broke up a potential shot, got the rebound, got kind of trapped, passed it out to guard. They went on the fast break transition. I can't remember which guard it was, but they missed a layup, and Javier Francis went back and dunked it on the putback. And that's just, those are the plays that the Houston Cougars coaching staff, Kelvin Sampson and the coaching staff, would love to see from Francis every single time down as often as possible.
And those are energy igniting plays for Houston culture. Those type of offensive rebounds and putbacks emphatically, that jump starts the defense, it jump starts the energy. And those are good plays. And I think with every game that goes on, JV is going to get better and better and show that he is getting better and better. And going to play around 18 minutes tonight. But within that, I mean, you always see the flashes of his potential and what he can do. Go back to Saturday and all the block shots he had. I think his impact, not only defensively, but the ability to offensive rebound and pick and roll, his best is just yet to come. As he continues to play more minutes, not get in foul trouble whenever he plays, and gets comfort play and play better bigs, I think we'll be able to see. I think he will. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say he's going to win Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Javier Francis?
Javier Francis will not only lead them in block shots in the Big 12 conference, but I think he has the potential and will win Defensive Player of the Year.
That's a big statement. He had 2 steals tonight against Stetson. No blocks. Did have 7 rebounds. And again, like I mentioned earlier, 6 points. When it comes to the other big man. He's playing as forward, but Joseph Tugler, he had some good moments. He had a good move towards the second half in the game where, again, he showed flashes of real quick when he gets the ball in the post. When he has a great quick turnaround that sometimes leaves defenders honestly frozen at times, as we saw when he did it today against Stetson. But again, still small sample size. But what you enjoy seeing from Joseph Tugler in this game,
his energy, his explosiveness. Well, no, take energy away. His explosiveness is really what sticks out. Every time I see him, like you said, his first step, his quick step, and his explosiveness to be able to get off the floor really just sticks out to me. And like you said, it's a small sample size. We haven't seen much of him, but when I see him, that's the first thing that jumps off the screen when I watch him. It's his explosiveness, his athleticism, and I think as he continues to get more minutes, I think he is going to play well, especially in the times where maybe J1 or whatever the case may be. There's going to be stretches with all freshmen where he's going to have that impact breakout game and have that big moment where he steps up. And so I can't wait to see that and see how he reacts in an adverse moment where he's counted upon. But so far, I love his athleticism and his explosiveness.
most definitely. When we talk about the depth for the Houston Cougars, again, showcased Houston had 40 bench points tonight. They forced Stetson to commit 23 turnovers. I believe the number was 17 at halftime, so Stetson did a much better job at cleaning that up in the second half. But still, Houston's suffocating defense, again, the depth showcased in this game, and in particular, there's just not much Stetson could do once Houston started hitting shots. 14 fast break points, 13 offensive rebounds off 27 misses. Houston only missed 27 shots. They got 13 of those misses, which is close to half, which is where Calvin Sampson said in the past, that's the goal that Houston always aim for, to be able to get offensive rebounds on about half of their misses. So they're just under, but really they were on pace to hit that category. So again, top to bottom, they checked a lot of the boxes when it comes to a signature Houston Cougars win, like you said earlier in the show.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely did. And I think they will continue to do so. I mean, some things are just non negotiable. And just watching Houston, teams can watch them on film and duplicate the system and what they will do. But one thing they can't do is duplicate how hard and how tough they're going to play and how much energy they exert on defense. And that's what I was thinking when watching the game early. And just the defense and the tenacity, but the equalizer, like early on, is 3-point shots. They were able to make some 3-point shots early, but then once Houston defense was able to buckle down, run them off the line, control the glass, and is able to just kind of stifle the things that they were able to do well. But it's just hard I would think, to replicate Houston's energy and tenacity, especially on the defensive end, and how they attack the offensive glass.
Mr. Smith on YouTube asked, what about Ernest Uday? I'm going to miss Uday. Ernest Uday, or TCU, or McCullough at Kansas for Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, no, I love that, especially at Kansas McCullers. He's, I think, a 6'6" guard and has the ability to guard 1 through 4. And so, and he has a ton of experience. He might be a fifth-year senior, if I'm not mistaken. And so I love that. And Uday as well. I love his. Those are two names that definitely will be in the running as well. It's just, I just believe in JVA Francis, his ability to defend the post. And I just can envision him having big moments on the defensive end and leading the conference in block shots and having good rebounds. But he's going to have to guard great players like Dickinson at Kansas. And so with attacks like that, they're going to, with their monster defense, they're going to double team. But I think he will have a lot of opportunities to prove how impactful he can be defensively. But those two names that he threw out, definitely good names for sure to keep an eye on.
I mean, shoot, he could potentially have competition within his own team. Jamal Shed certainly would be in the conversation. He had 5 steals tonight. Big Jack 512 on YouTube agrees. He says JoJo is fearless. He also said that Dunn came off the bench and ran off 9 straight points. Real quickly, we like to remind everybody that they are watching and or listening, depending on if you're watching us live. Thank you if you're watching us either on YouTube, catching the replay, or audio only, that this is Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. LRC is the original Houston post-game show for football and men's basketball. Of course, we'd like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor for today's episode. That's Star Pizza, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. And remember that all locations have an all-you-can-eat buffet every Tuesday at lunch. So Monday night, Houston Cougars get a big win. Tuesday at noon for lunchtime, you can get a big win yourself by stopping at any of your Star Pizza locations, whichever you prefer, that's closest to you. And on that note, we welcome in the third member of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review, joining us from the Fertitta Center. He's there live. You saw the game in action, just came out of the post-game presser with Kelvin Sampson and the selected student athletes. What came away from the post-game press conference, Kris?
Fellas, how y'all doing? I asked Coach Sampson about Juwan Roberts. He only played 8 minutes in the game this evening. Coach said Juwan had a knee issue, bothered by it, but because it's not serious, anything like that, Coach wanted to give the younger guys more minutes. So it's good to get Terrence and Ramon more minutes. So if the game were the conference game, shall we say, Juwan would have gone in the game, but he's fine. I know I got a question about that on Musk, so I want to put that out there. Juwan Roberts is okay.
On Musk. That's great to hear. We talked about that. They mentioned in the broadcast a knee injury. Honestly, they did a game that's not worth risking. This is Farm Bradley third game of the season against Stetson. Let's be honest. They weren't necessarily Juwan Roberts wasn't gonna. Not a big difference in this game against Stetson, is what I'm trying to say. And again, Houston was able to still win big. And again, early on in the season, no point in risking anything, even when it might just be some knee discomfort.
That's all it is. I mean, he was one of the first guys off the bench during timeouts to, take hands with his teammates and pump them up, things like that. So he seems stiff. So I think it's bothersome, but I don't think it's anything major. Because the trainer, the shaman, I call him, John Houston, he didn't spend much time with Juwan at all during the game on the sideline. So I don't believe it's major. And with this competition right now, it's not a huge thing. But again, Coach Sam talked about the depth of this team, and it's good for getting younger guys more minutes of action and get them on the floor. And speaking of depth, I think one of the comments folks mentioned Malik Wilson. One of the things Coach Sampson mentioned was he wants Malik to get more minutes because he wants to minimize Jamal's minutes so Jamal could be stronger in second halves of basketball games throughout this season. That was an issue last season. Jamal got tired. Of course, he was battling injury as well. But as the season progressed, Jamal playing 33, 34, 35 minutes took its toll, and he wore down. Coach Sam said a lot of the guys wore down because they weren't as deep last season. And this year, so far, on paper, a very deep squad, 10 deep. They played 10 guys in the first 10 minutes of tonight's game. 10 guys.
Yeah, that was something that was mentioned in the ESPN Plus broadcast as well. Going back to last season, that was something that played Houston, or not even played, but it caught up to them towards the NCAA tournament. And like you mentioned, Kris, that's been the story for the first 3 games of the season. Depth. And there are legitimately 10 guys deep. And I want to bring up, since we're kind of touching on Jamal Shead, Mr. Smith posed a question on YouTube. What are y'all's thoughts on Shead's play through 3 games?
Well, last game, he got in early foul trouble and sat the first, I guess, the next 14 minutes of the first half. So he's battled foul trouble first 2 games. He had some turnovers tonight in this 3rd game. Played better in second half tonight. Hasn't been great, typical Jamal Shead yet, but 3 games in him, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I think it's been steady in regards to what he's relied on to do: ignite the offense, push the break, be the head starter of the defense. And so just from that perspective, not really just taking into account the stats, just looking at it from that perspective, I mean, he's been okay. I agree 100%. He hasn't been great, but it's nothing to worry about. When it comes down to those big games, big moments, he's going to be one of those players that's going to step up and be ready. And so, I mean, I think he's been steady. If I had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, I think he's probably been around maybe a 5 or 6 or so. But I think his best is yet to come as far as the season goes on. Competition gets better, all of that.
And to
Agreed.
be quite frank,
And LJ Cryer, excuse me, Andy, LJ Cryer, had a great shooting game tonight. So his first out of 3. One thing, and I think all of us have noticed it so far in the 3 games, and fans as well who are watching us on Let's Rage Coogs. Coach Sampson acknowledged that Emmanuel Sharp, Damian Dunn, he wants to at least one of them to be on every game, to have a role in every game. At least one of those two to get points every game. That's part of the plan and the goal going into whatever game the Cougs are playing. At least one of those 2 young men get points. So you got that. You got that option. Whether it's Damian Dunn, Emmanuel Sharp, it's a good problem to have.
what I was gonna say about Jamal Shannon, honestly, he hasn't been needed to have to score. He can just legitimately be a facilitator for Houston, which is what he has done when he's been on the floor. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, he had 8 assists today, 4 turnovers. I think if in a perfect world, obviously you'd want those turnovers to go down, maybe closer to a 3-to-1 ratio instead of 2-to-1. But still, he's not really been asked to score, and I think we all agree that he's more than capable to be able to come up with a basket when needed. Just look at what he did last season multiple times throughout the season. But on this team, he might not even be counted on, certainly on a consistent basis, to be able to have to carry the scoring load. And that's another way that it might make things a little bit easier for him. He can just focus on being a sole facilitator
And impacting defense like he did tonight. Coach Sampson said that he got 5 good guards who are capable to get 20 points in a given night. Not average 20 points, because he doesn't want guys. It's not a part of the system. He doesn't really want guys to average 20 points per game. But LJ can get 20. Damon can get 20. Jamal could get 20. Emmanuel could get 20. So different guys couldn't get 20 if it's needed in a particular matchup. And that's part of what he's learned as he's progressing his coaching career, to have as many guys capable of getting 20 points in a game if needed.
Yeah, I like the way I think Jamal learned from last year as he rewatched film over the season, that probably in times he was maybe a little bit too aggressive to score, because I think you're just comparing it back to last year's team. They had the scoring options to be able to do what he does at a high level, was facilitate. But to his credit, he does a great job of picking his spots and when to be aggressive to score and when to be a facilitator. But I think, in my opinion, from last year, there was often times where he maybe was too aggressive to score, in which other options, who may, in my opinion, may have been better scoring options, wasn't really given a chance to do much. But with this team, like Kris just said, you got 4 or 5 players who can go off for 20 points. I think he realizes that, and he's even being more mindful, and just credit to his basketball IQ, and realized, okay, who's going to be hot tonight? How can I get the ball to them in their spots? And when do I need to pick and choose to be aggressive? And when they're making shots, that opens the floor for him and his pick and roll game to be able to drive inside and slash and create inside, of whether it's creating for JVA or whoever's in the pick and roll with, or being aggressive to score inside. And so I think for Jamal, it's just staying steady, picking and choosing his spots, and just doing what he do.
Stepping away from this game real quick, Eric Hudson on YouTube asked, I'm going to put up the bracket for the Charleston Classic, but Eric Hudson on YouTube asked, other than winning, what are you looking to come out of the trip to Charleston? I see Houston opens the Charleston Classic on Thursday against Towson, and Dayon, like you mentioned, they'll play either Utah or Wake Forest, depending on the outcome of the games, and they could potentially play LSU, Dayton, North Texas, or St. John's later on in the tournament come Sunday.
In terms of matchup, I'd like to see a potential Houston-St. John's matchup. Kelvin Sampson, Rick Pitino, but overall, classic. Just guys developing, continue to improve the depth of the team. That's my main focus of it. I sound like a coach right there, but that's really my main focus on. Defense continues to fine-tune and continue to develop the depth, the bench, and get the young guys up front more experience.
I'm going to be looking for really just the different ways, like I said, kind of start to show the different ways that Coach Sampson looks to utilize different players in regards to how many different ways that he feels that his team can win games. And that's something I'm keeping an eye on. I know the defense is going to be there. The rebounding is going to be there. On a game-to-game basis, they're going to really compete and try their hardest to do those things. So I'm looking on different lineups that he plays and different strategies and different go-to players that he gets the ball in different spots to kind of see who he's counting on in different moments after a timeout, how they execute certain things, and maybe under 2 minutes, short shot clock, short on the minutes, just different ways to kind of to see who he feels is his go-to players on any given game. And so those are some of the things that I'll be watching.
Keep it kind of simple, but I'm just curious to see how Houston does playing. They played today. They played Saturday, so that's 2 games in 3 days. And now looking ahead, I think it's going to be a 4 games and 7-day stretch. I'm going to be curious to see how they play come Sunday, even come Friday when they got a little bit of track or wear and tear on their legs after playing so many games in within a week's span.
I'm curious to that as well, Andy. That's a good point to see because guys have little nagging injuries right now. Juwan with his knee, JoJo with his back. Tal Jamal has some little, I think he had a cut. Emmanuel's had some cramp issues in his thigh, things like that. A lot of games in a short amount of time. We'll see how they handle it with so many games. But it's the beauty of having a deep team. You don't have to play a lot of minutes, every game in, game out. So barring injuries, everybody should be okay.
I'm also keeping an eye on Terrence, his game to game. I really, on the game to game, I think he's being called upon to impact the game in different ways, just depending on the matchup. So it's another player I'm keeping my eye on to see his confidence level from my perspective, from my opinion on how aggressive he is and how he picks and chooses his spots to be aggressive to score.
He had 10 points tonight, only 8 rebounds. I mean, only 2 rebounds. Last game he had 8 rebounds. So different guys. Emmanuel finally got on the boards tonight. I made fun of him after the first game. He had 0 rebounds. And you noticed it post game. He looked at the box score. Rebounds, I had 0. I'm going to hear that tomorrow in practice. But he's gotten better on that. There's different things. The guys know their roles and what's needed for them to impact winning, as we all hear Coach Sampson say, and how they are now, that's what they say as well. They want to impact winning. I'm just looking forward to different competition. Hopefully it's going to be a step up in competition because these first 3 games, even though the Cougars, who they beat in the season opener, went on to win their next game against Central Michigan, whatever that was kind of a surprise. But, hey, as Coach Sampson tells us, he puts together the schedule. He knows more about it than we do. Let's leave it at that.
On the topic of the schedule, TI 7791 says Penn looked good in their game against Villanova, so that'll be fun. That's going to be a future non-conference game. And Penn, the Quakers, went and shocked 21-ranked Villanova Wildcats today. And Houston will actually host Penn the day before New Year's Eve, December 30th, inside of the Fertitta Center. So that's going to be a test come right before the start of conference play for Houston.
We'll see. I mean, it's a good win for Penn tonight. It's a Big 5 win, Battle of Philly. But who knows how they're going to look in 5-6 weeks. Same with Houston. Injuries could take a toll of either or both clubs. But on paper, it's a potential matchup in terms of, I think, another Q2 opportunity for the Cougs. This question for us, y'all see this from Mr. Smith. Who's been the most surprising so far this season? Maybe Dayon Dunn?
I had the exact same thought in my mind. It's not even surprising in terms of what he's done. It's surprising with how well he's fit in so early on into the season, and considering the fact that he also missed a good portion of time during October because of an injury.
With the ankle issue, he sprained his ankle, rolled it. I want to say at least 4 times. from June to October, at least 4 times, maybe more. So much so I made fun of him and said, "We need to get some different shoes, man." Because it just might be one of those things, wrong fit, but bad luck as well. Step on someone's foot, you roll your ankle a different way. But you can see his impact coming off the bench and giving instant offense. And even damn little old man game where he's backing guys down and getting little post ups and mid post buckets as well.
For me, it's been Malik Wilson. I watched those games in Australia, and that's why I think he'd be the X factor, because his versatility and I think it'll be a lot of games where, like Coach Sampson, he wants to get Jamal's minutes down. And I think Malik has the task of doing that, but not only running the offense, his ability to guard full court, pressure the ball, to get steals, get deflections, and push the pace. I think he's one of the players that really plays well in transition. I think he's going to be a key X factor as the season goes on. So I wasn't really surprised with Dayon Dunn, because I think we saw what he's able to do at Temple. And then in my conversation with Kellen, he really emphatically spoke about Dayon and his impact of how they were going to feature him and what he was going to do. And to his credit, that's exactly what he's done so far in these 3 games. But for me, it's Malik.
And Malik, he was one of the 2 student athletes talk post game. He said playing Australia really helped him. He benefited from the experience. He used the word more confident. Coach Sampson used the word more comfortable. But Malik creates havoc defensively. He gets after it, and he can get steals. He's also a good rebounding guard. And if he gets it, he can get it and go and push the tempo and push that pace to help score easier buckets in transition. This team is different. It's versatile in different ways. And I'm looking forward to how they do against better competition, non-conference, and definitely in Big 12.
That's what I'm looking for, the competition. Before you hopped on, Kris, just like you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but these games have really been scrimmages that count towards your record. It's really what they've been. Yeah. And so it's really not much to take away outside of how players how the teams look. But like Kris, I'm ready to see against better competition.
And Coach Sampson, he did say that one benefit of not really having to play Juwan tonight was these non-conference games that aren't against great competition is an opportunity for the younger guys to get more minutes and to get some experience and to get some confidence. So he did kind of say that as a reason as well for kind of scheduling these opponents.
Corey Miller says that not necessarily surprising because we know what Ramon does, but his energy and effort he plays with always stands out. Big Jack 512 adds it. Javier taking his game to another level. So Big Jack is high on Javier Francis. Kris, what were your thoughts on Francis in today's game against Stetson?
He didn't do a lot to stand out. I really was impressed with him and JoJo and how quickly they recovered or helped. And they extended the traps all over the place. It wasn't just in the post. There was some in the corners. There was some at the free throw line in the mid post area. So that's like a different wrinkle that they're giving opponents to look at on film. That we're not just going to double team the post. We're going to get you maybe in a corner, trap your guard or whoever if you have the ball sometimes. So that's a different aspect that the quicker big man can provide this year's Coug squad.
As we kind of start to wind things down, Kris, what were any other takeaways that you had from the post-game presser following Houston's victory here tonight?
Before you answer, Kris, if I can include about Ramon, he has shown, of course, the energy and effort. We always rave about that, but he's developed offensively. Mm-hmm. I think he's a player consistently offensively that Houston can be able to count on. However the season pans out, if his number is called, he can be counted on consistently offensively and with everything else he brings to the table. So I really like from what I've seen from Ramon so far this season as well. I'm sorry to cut you guys off. Go ahead, Kris.
No problem. He's healthy. He looks healthy. He looks more comfortable himself. He looks confident in his game. The shot is no longer broken. He's even added some handles. Some dribbling, more aspects to the game as well, to his game, to his bag. So that you can see the development from the guys who sat out. Malik, took advantage of it, and the improvement in his game is. This team is different. This team is versatile. This team is under the radar. I mean, I know they're sixth in the poll right now, but a lot of folks aren't picking them to do anything. It's all about Kansas and Big 12, all that kind of stuff. But don't sleep on this team, man. And Corey, I agree. I think Andy and we first noticed Ramon's shot. There was something wrong with it. It looked kind of had a hitch and it looked broken. And it turns out that he was battling injuries with it. He looks healthy now, and the shot, it's like one motion. There's no hitch in it. It doesn't look herky jerky. Looks like a Dayon Dunlap shot.
It's a great way to put it. Kris, just in terms of the post-game presser, any other takeaways? Any final takeaways?
Nothing earth-shattering. JoJo.
Yes, Chris Baldwin goes in the background. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
in his brief moments, was just talking about, he's just trying to do what he does, ask what he rebound and defend. You can see the potential there with him. He headed so hard on the ball screen. Sometimes he gets a silly foul, which Coach Sampson has to JoJo, just calm down and do what we coach you to do. But his potential there, and he's got low post game that you can see glimpses of. So that's another opportunity for him in the future. But Coach said one thing he touched on again about the possibility of these guys coming back next season. He said again, if Juwan comes back next season, as an option, but JoJo comes back. Jacob McFarland could play this year, but he opted to redshirt him because he wants to give him more time, get more time to get more physical, get stronger, and be ready for next year. Next year's team could be. I'm excited to cover the team, man.
I feel like we've said that for the past 3 years, Kris.
It's such a contrast to the other team we cover here on Let's Rage Coogs.
For sure.
On the top of that, TI 7791 just blatantly said it, but we will leave that.
Oh, real quick, Andy, for today, to Corey's question,
there.
Just about every veteran player on this year's squad can use their COVID year next year if they choose to do so.
LJ Cryer included?
I mean, Coach said it. He said it. Now but I want to say just about everyone could have to, because Coach said when he signed, LJ committed or transferred, that he has 2 years left. And I was surprised when he said that. So, but yeah.
Definitely said Damien does for Corey Miller. He definitely said for sure that Damien has 2 years.
Now, I don't expect Jamal to come back next year, but the option's there for the COVID year for just about everybody on this year's squad. Yes.
Well, we shall see, but still a lot to discuss this season. There's still barely 3 games into it. Off to a promising start for Houston. Once again, the final score from Houston inside the Fertitta Center, where Kris currently is located. Houston defeats Stetson 79-48. Once again, like I said at the top of the show, LJ Cryer led the way with 21 points, 9 of 15 shooting, 3 of 6 from the field. As a team, Houston shot 9 of 20 from behind the three-point line, and from the field, they shot 30 of 57. 27 misses for Houston. They got 13 offensive rebounds off those 27 misses. And Dayon Dunn also had 15 points. Malik Wilson had 11. Terrence Arsenault had 10. And the leading rebounder in the game was Javier Francis. And Jamal Shed led the way with 8 assists as well. Toss it over to either of you guys, whoever want to take it. Any final takeaways from this game or looking ahead? Again, big stretch for Houston, 4 games and 7 nights, and beginning with Towson on Thursday afternoon, 5:30 p.m. tip-off for Houston.
That's what I was going to say. It's a unique tip-off because of the classic of the event. So our Let's Rage Coogs will come on differently. I'm looking forward to Towson. I don't know much about Towson's squad this year.
Justin Gorham's old school.
Yep. Just different matchups for the Cougs. 3 games in 4 days for them. See how they respond to that. Onward and upward.
Yeah, for me, I agree with everything Kris said. Better competition. I want to see better competition, how they respond in adverse moments and adversity, and how this team fights to win a game. They haven't had to fight yet. They haven't been in a street fight like Kellen often references. And so I want to see them in those moments in a tough game with this year's team. And I know that time is coming. As the competition gets stiffer, it gets better. Time is coming.
Well, that's pretty much gonna do for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs Basketball Edition, presented by the Saxenian family. Once again, Let's Rage Coogs is the unofficial and original Houston post-game show
Say it
for
again.
football
Say it again. Say
and
it again.
men's basketball. Original or unofficial and original Houston post-game show for men's basketball and football. And of course, we also like to say thank you to Star Pizza with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game, and be sure to visit on Tuesdays for their buffet. Kris, toss it over to you. Where can people find you?
Thank you very much. You can find me on social media platforms at Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for everybody who is subscribing. Tell your friends about the channel. Follow me on Threads, Spoutable, TikTok, Instagram, etc. at Houston Roundball Review. And as always, I appreciate it. I know the guys do as well. Thank you for supporting us and watching us on Let's Rage Coogs.
Also, before I'm gonna give my socials, shout out to the women getting their first victory against Air Force. I'm always optimistic, as Kris knows, but this team actually looks different. The quality of depth that they have, specifically at the guard play and in the post, looks different. And so I can't wait to see how their season plays out. But the talent that Coach Hugh and staff has assembled, this team, I think, has the right talent and the talent level to be able to be successful. Now, will that? That's yet to be seen, but I wanted to make sure to give them their flair. And shout out to Coach Hugh, who actually came through with some tickets for me and my family to watch that game. But you can follow me on all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap, like it shows on the screen. Of course, we appreciate all the support always.